Dr. Alan Carter yawned as he stared at the computer screen. The clock on the wall showed 2:30 a.m., but he wasn't ready to leave the NASA lab yet. Something about the data from the Deep Space Monitoring Station bothered him. The usual background noise from space had changed. There was a pattern now. He rubbed his tired eyes and took another sip of cold coffee. The pattern appeared again. Regular pulses, too precise to be natural. Alan sat up straight, suddenly wide awake. He picked up the phone and called his supervisor. "Sir, I think you need to see this," he said. "I found something unusual." Within 3 hours, the lab filled with scientists and government officials. The signals were getting stronger. Something was coming toward Earth. 5 days later, it arrived. A massive ship, larger than anything humans had ever built, entered Earth's orbit. Television broadcasts around the world stopped to show the same images. A giant metal structure, glowing with strange blue lights, hanging above the planet like a new moon. People panicked. Some ran to churches. Others stocked up on food and water. Military forces worldwide went on high alert. Then the aliens sent their message. It appeared on every screen, in every language. "We are the Velori. We come with knowledge. We wish to speak with Earth's leaders." The United Nations quickly formed a special meeting. After 2 days of arguments, they selected a team to meet the visitors. Dr. Alan Carter's name was on the list. As one of the first to detect their arrival, and a leading physicist, he would represent the scientific community. Captain Lisa Morgan of the U.S. Space Force would go as military observer. UN Secretary William Hawkins would lead the group. "This is the most important moment in human history," Hawkins told them as they prepared to board the special shuttle. "Remember, you represent not just your countries, but all of humanity." The shuttle ride to the meeting point was silent, each person lost in their own thoughts. Alan stared out the window at the Earth below, wondering if anything would be the same after today. The meeting location was a space station the Velori had quickly built in orbit. As the humans entered, they saw the aliens for the first time. The Velori stood nearly 7 feet tall with silvery skin that seemed to shimmer. Their eyes changed colors as they moved, shifting from purple to green to blue. They had no hair, and their fingers were long with an extra joint. Supreme Commander Zix stepped forward. His eyes turned a deep gold color as he looked at the humans. "Welcome," he said, his voice coming through a translator device. "We have watched your planet for some time." Secretary Hawkins stepped forward and extended his hand. "On behalf of Earth, we welcome you and hope for peaceful exchange between our worlds." Zix looked at the offered hand but did not take it. "Your customs are noted," he said coldly. For the next 3 hours, the meeting continued. The Velori asked questions about Earth's governments, resources, and technology. When Alan tried to ask about their science, Zix barely answered. "Your understanding is too limited," the alien commander said. "You are barely more than apes who have learned to use simple tools." Captain Morgan's face turned red, but she stayed quiet. Near the end of the meeting, Zix made their offer. "We will provide technology to help your world. Better energy sources, medical improvements. In exchange, we ask only for access to your water resources. We come from a dry world." Secretary Hawkins smiled broadly. "That sounds very generous. We would need to discuss details, of course." As they returned to the shuttle, Alan felt uneasy. The offer seemed too good, and the way Zix had looked at them, like they were insects or pets, not equals. Something wasn't right. Did anyone else think they seemed condescending? He asked quietly. Captain Morgan nodded. "They called us primitive apes to our faces. Whatever they want, I don't trust them." "But think of what we could learn," Hawkins said. "This could solve Earth's biggest problems." Alan wasn't convinced. As their shuttle headed back to Earth, he watched the massive Velori ship through the window. He couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change, and not for the better. 6 months passed since the Velori arrived. Their ships now hovered over major cities around the world. They built bases in remote areas and called them research centers. Dr. Alan Carter now worked at the largest one, just outside Denver. Every morning, he showed his ID badge to the guards, both human and Valori, and tried to smile. The aliens had kept their word, sort of. They shared some technology, better solar panels that made cheaper electricity and new batteries that lasted longer. But nothing that changed the world in big ways. Nothing like their ships or weapons. Alan's new assistant, Olivia Wright, placed a coffee cup on his desk. "You look tired," she said. "Another late night?" He nodded. "I keep asking to see their engine designs. They keep saying we aren't ready." Olivia leaned closer and whispered, "My brother Jack found something. Can you come to my place tonight?" No phones. Alan raised an eyebrow, but simply said, "Sure. What time?" That night, Alan drove to Olivia's small house. Her brother Jack sat at the kitchen table with a laptop. He worked as a codebreaker for the military. His face looked serious. "I cracked some of their messages," Jack said without greeting. "They're not what they seem." Jack turned his laptop around. On screen were strange symbols, the Valori language, with English translations below. Phase 1 complete. Human leadership compromised. Water extraction to begin in 3 months. Military containment ready. Alan felt cold. What does compromised mean? "This," Olivia said, turning on the TV. Secretary Hawkins appeared on screen, praising the Valori. As he spoke, Alan noticed something odd about his eyes, a slight glow when the camera caught them at certain angles. "They put something in him," Jack explained. "Some kind of control device. We think many world leaders have them now." Alan rubbed his face. "We need to tell someone. Captain Morgan would believe us." "Already tried," Jack said. "She's gone missing. Went to talk to Hawkins 3 days ago and disappeared." A knock at the door made them all freeze. Olivia peeked through the window and quickly opened it. Captain Lisa Morgan rushed in, looking exhausted. Her uniform was dirty, and a cut marked her cheek. "They tried to kill me," she said. "Hawkins isn't himself." When I mentioned my concerns, his eyes changed color. 2 guards tried to grab me. I barely got away. Lisa dropped a small metal device on the table. "I pulled this from one of the guards. It fell off his neck when we fought." Alan examined it carefully. "Looks like some kind of transmitter, maybe part of their control system." "The Valori bases are building something big," Lisa said. "My contacts say they're putting huge structures in the oceans. Not research, more like mining equipment." Jack typed quickly on his laptop. "Other countries are getting suspicious. China threatened to close the Valori base last week. Russia is increasing military exercises near their sites. We need to understand their technology," Alan said. "If we could figure out how it works." Olivia nodded. "I can get access to some of their devices at work. They don't watch me as closely as you." "It's dangerous," Lisa warned. "If they catch you, what choice do we have?" Olivia asked. "Wait until they control everyone." They talked long into the night. By morning, they had a plan. Alan would keep working at the base, pretending nothing was wrong. Olivia would collect information on Valori tech. Jack would monitor their communications, and Lisa would use her military contacts to find others they could trust. As Alan drove home, he saw a Valori ship crossing the sky. 6 months ago, the sight filled him with wonder. Now it brought only fear. The aliens didn't come to help. They came to take over. At work later that day, a Valori supervisor approached him. "Dr. Carter, you seem troubled. Is our cooperation not proceeding well?" Alan forced a smile. "Just tired. So much to learn from your amazing technology." The Valori's eyes shifted to a dark blue color. "Indeed, we have much to teach primitive species like yours." The alien walked away, and Alan's forced smile dropped. In his mind, he repeated the words that would become their secret motto. "They think we're primitive apes. That will be their mistake." The old mining tunnel was cold and damp. Water dripped from the ceiling, and the air smelled of dirt and metal. Dr. Alan Carter didn't mind. This hidden place, 2 hours from Denver in the mountains, was now their best hope. "The generators are working," Lisa Morgan said as she entered the main cave. "We have power and the shields are up." "Shields?" Ellen asked. "Special metal sheets in the walls," she explained. "They block Valori scanners. Jack figured out their scanning technology uses a certain frequency. These sheets bounce it back." 3 weeks had passed since they discovered the Valori's true plans. In that time, they worked in secret to create this hidden base. Old mining equipment and tables filled the space. Computers and scientific tools, taken bit by bit from various labs, lined the walls. "How many people do we have now?" Alan asked. 23, Lisa said. "All people I trust. Military, scientists, computer experts. No one with family that could be used against them." Jack Wright entered, carrying more equipment. "I got 5 more people today. All good with computers. They can help crack the Valori codes." Alan nodded. Their small group was growing, but was it enough? The Valori controlled most world leaders now. Their ships patrolled the skies. People who spoke against them disappeared. "Any word from Olivia?" Alan asked. She had stayed at the Valori base, their eyes and ears inside. "Nothing since yesterday," Jack said, looking worried. She was going to try something risky. Just then, a radio on the table crackled. "Base, this is Scout. I have a package. Coming in hot. Open east door." Lisa grabbed her gun and ran to the hidden entrance. Minutes later, Olivia stumbled in, her face pale but smiling. She held a small silver device in her hand. "I got it," she said. "Their version of a computer. Had to hide in a supply closet for 6 hours. But I got it." Everyone gathered around the strange device. It was smooth, with no buttons or screen, just a shimmering surface that seemed to change color. "How does it work?" Alan asked. "Not sure yet," Olivia admitted. "But it's important. The Valori keep them with them always. This one belonged to a scientist who set it down while working." Jack carefully took the device. "I'll start analyzing it right away." That night, as they worked, an emergency broadcast came on their radio. The Valori had announced new rules. All major cities would now have Valori governors for human protection. More Valori ships appeared in the skies, no longer hiding their presence. "They're moving faster than we expected," Lisa said. "Something spooked them." "They know something was stolen," Olivia guessed. "The base was in chaos when I left." The next morning, Alan received a message. One of the Valori scientists wanted to meet him privately. Dr. Kilner had seemed different from the others, more friendly. Alan decided to risk the meeting. They met in a quiet park. Kilner looked around nervously. "You didn't come to work," the alien said. "I was concerned. Just needed a break." Alan lied. "The work is frustrating." Kilner's eyes shifted to a green color Alan had never seen before. "You know something, don't you, about our real purpose here?" Alan stayed silent, ready to run. "Earth isn't the first," Kilner said quietly. "I've seen this before. My people find worlds, pretend to help, then take everything." "Why tell me this?" Alan asked. "Because it's wrong," Kilner replied. "We were explorers once, not conquerors. Some of us remember that." "How many worlds?" Alan asked. "Dozens," Kilner said. "You were never seen as equals, just another primitive species to be harvested." Before Alan could respond, Kilner pressed something into his hand. "Data chip, our shield frequencies, ship layouts. It will help." "Why risk this?" Alan asked. "Because your kind is different," Kilner said. "I study your history. You adapt. You fight impossible odds. Maybe you'll be the ones who finally stop us." As Kilner walked away, Alan felt both hope and fear. The Valori weren't united. They had help now, but time was running out. He needed to get this information to the others right away. 8 months had passed since the Valori first came to Earth. The snow outside the hidden base was deep, but inside, the air was warm with the heat of computers and people working. Jack Wright hadn't slept in nearly 2 days. His eyes were red, but he couldn't stop smiling as he called everyone to the main room. "I figured it out," he said, pointing to the Valori device they had stolen. "It's not just a computer. It's partly alive." Alan leaned closer. "Alive? How?" "Their technology combines machines with organic parts," Jack explained. "That's why we couldn't understand it at first. It's like a mix of a computer and a plant." Olivia looked up from her own work. "That makes sense. I always saw them feeding their devices strange liquids." "Not feeding," Jack said. "Watering. The circuits are grown, not built." This discovery changed everything. For months they had tried to understand Valori tech with no success. Now they had a direction. Lisa Morgan entered, followed by several tired soldiers. They had just returned from a secret mission. "Did you get it?" Alan asked. Lisa nodded and placed a small container on the table. Inside was a piece of metal with strange patterns. "Part of their ship's control system," she said. "Cost us 2 good people." The room fell silent for a moment, remembering those who didn't return. "Their sacrifice won't be wasted," Alan promised. "With this and what we know now, we can make real progress." The next day, they received a visitor. Dr. Nathan Ford arrived, brought by one of Lisa's trusted soldiers. He was famous for his work in genetics before the Valori came. He was also known for being strange. His hair stood up in all directions, and he talked to himself. "So these aliens grow their technology?" he asked after they explained. "Fascinating. Let me see their device." Ford studied the alien computer carefully. Then he did something unexpected. He licked it. "What are you doing?" Jack asked, horrified. "Tasting," Ford said calmly. "There's a protective coating, similar to what certain fungi produce." For days, Ford worked with samples from the device. He rarely slept or ate unless reminded. Then one morning, he burst into the main room. "They're sensitive to radiation," he announced. "Certain isotopes make their biological systems break down. That's why they use these protective coatings." "Can we use that against them?" Lisa asked. "Yes," Ford said. "We can create devices that emit these specific radiation types, harmful to them, but we can shield ourselves easily." This was their first real advantage. The Valori weren't invincible. Meanwhile, Alan worked with the ship part. The data from Kellner helped him understand how it connected to other systems. He began drawing plans for a weapon that could penetrate Valori shields. "Their shields block energy in one direction," he explained to the others. "But if we pulse the energy at exactly the right frequency." Olivia had been monitoring Valori communications. "They're bringing more ships," she reported. "They've started building huge water processing centers in the oceans. They're taking more than we can spare." "Time to test what we've learned," Lisa decided. She pointed to a map. "There's a small Valori transport ship that lands here every week. Minimal crew. We could take it." The plan was dangerous. They would use Ford's radiation devices to disable the Valori guards, then capture the ship intact. They needed its navigation system and weapons to understand how they worked. 3 nights later, Lisa led a team of 6 fighters to the landing site. The rest watched from the base through cameras on their uniforms. The fight was quick but violent. 2 of their people were hit by Valori weapons. The strange energy burned through their protective gear, but in the end, they secured the ship and brought back key components. As Alan studied the new technology, he felt hope for the first time in months. The Valori had made a critical mistake. They thought humans were too primitive to understand their advanced science. But humans had something the Valori didn't expect: creativity. The ability to combine ideas in new ways. "We don't need to match their technology exactly," Alan told the others. "We just need to find its weaknesses and create our own solutions." Ford nodded in agreement. They evolved along one path, becoming experts in biological technology. But that made them narrow in their thinking. We can use that. The Resistance now had the pieces they needed. It was time to build their own weapons. Alan held the new weapon in his hands. It was heavy and looked rough. Nothing like the smooth Valori devices. But it worked. They had tested it yesterday on a piece of Valori shield material. The energy beam had cut through it like it was paper. "How many can we make?" Lisa asked, examining the weapon. "With the materials we have, maybe 50, Jack answered. "We need more power cells." The Resistance base had changed a lot in the past weeks. More people had joined. They now had over 100 fighters, scientists, and engineers. What started as a small group in a cave was becoming an army. "We need to train people to use these," Lisa said. She took the weapon from Alan and aimed it at a target on the wall. A bright blue beam shot out, leaving a smoking hole in the metal target. "They have a strong kick. Not like normal guns." Outside the base, the world situation was getting worse. The Valori had taken full control of most countries. Their water extraction machines worked day and night. Lakes were shrinking. Rivers ran lower each day, and anyone who protested disappeared. Olivia rushed into the room, her face pale. "They destroyed Miami," she said. "The whole city. It's gone." Everyone stared at her in shock. "The resistance there was growing too strong," she explained. "The Valori sent a message to all other cities. Follow our rules or be next." Lisa slammed her fist on the table. "They killed millions of people just to scare us." "It will backfire," Jack said quietly. "People who had accepted the Valori will turn against them now." He was right. In the days that followed, their radios picked up messages from resistance groups all over the world. The destruction of Miami had changed everything. People who had been afraid to fight were now joining the resistance. Dr. Ford had been working on his own project. He showed them a small device that released a fine mist. "This attacks their neural control implants," he explained. "It won't hurt humans, but it breaks the connection between the implants and Valori control systems." "Could it free people like Secretary Hawkins?" Alan asked. Ford nodded. "It should, but we need to get close to them." Jack had made another breakthrough with the Valori communication system. He found a way to listen to their private messages without being detected. "They're planning something big," he told the others. "All the Valori ships are being called to specific locations, and they're bringing their leaders to the control center in Denver." Lisa saw their chance. "If we hit them when they're all gathered, we could deal a serious blow." They spent days planning the attack. It would be dangerous. The Denver facility was heavily guarded, but they had advantages now. Weapons that could hurt the Valori and knowledge of their weaknesses. The plan was to attack Valori facilities around the world at the same time. Most would be small strikes, just enough to draw attention and forces. The main attack would be on Denver, led by Alan and Lisa. On the day of the attack, Alan felt both scared and determined. He had not planned to be a soldier. He was a scientist. But the Valori had changed everything. "Ready?" Lisa asked as they prepared to leave the base. "No," Alan admitted, "but I'll do what needs to be done." The attack began at midnight. Around the world, resistance fighters hit Valori targets. The aliens were surprised. Their shields did not stop the new human weapons. For the first time, the Valori were the ones afraid. In Denver, Alan and Lisa led 30 fighters into the facility. The battle was intense. 5 of their people fell in the first few minutes, but they pushed forward, using Ford's mist device to disable the human guards with implants. They fought their way to the central command room. There they found their target, the regional Valori commander. Unlike the others, this Valori didn't run. He stood tall, his eyes glowing red with anger. "You primitive creatures," he hissed. "You cannot stop us." Lisa shot him with a stun weapon Olivia had designed. The commander fell to the ground, unconscious but alive. "Get him to the transport," she ordered, "and plant the devices." As they retreated with their prisoner, Alan activated special transmitters throughout the building. They wouldn't destroy it, but would disrupt Valori communications for days. Back at the base, they had what they needed, a high-ranking Valori officer who knew their plans. Now they just had to make him talk. Getting information from the Valori commander was not easy. For 3 days, he refused to speak. He just stared at them with his color-changing eyes, showing no fear. Olivia had an idea. She created a device based on the Valori's own technology that could read some of their brain patterns. It wasn't perfect, but it gave them something. The mothership has a central reactor. Alan told the group after they used the device. It powers everything. And it has a weakness. He drew a rough picture of the reactor. It looked like a giant glowing ball surrounded by rings. If we can send a specific energy pulse into it, it will cause a cascade failure. The whole ship would shut down. How do we get close enough to do that? Lisa asked. We build our own ships, Jack suggested. Everyone looked at him like he was crazy. Not from scratch. We can modify aircraft using what we've learned about Valori tech. The idea was bold. Use human planes and add Valori technology to make hybrid fighters. It would take time and resources, but they had both now. Resistance cells worldwide had raided Valori facilities, collecting parts and materials. Meanwhile, Dr. Ford worked day and night to improve his anti-implant mist. He needed to make it stronger and able to spread over larger areas. If we can free enough controlled humans, especially military leaders, we'll have real armies on our side, he explained. 2 weeks later, they were ready to test the first hybrid fighter. It was an old military jet modified with Valori shield technology and power systems. The weapons were human-made but used principles they had learned from studying alien tech. Who's going to fly it? Alan asked. I am, Lisa said. She had been a pilot before joining Space Force. I know the risks. The test flight went better than expected. The hybrid fighter was faster than any normal plane. Its shields worked against Valori weapons, and its guns could damage Valori ships. We need to make more, Lisa said after landing. And train pilots. Jack interrupted with urgent news. He had intercepted a Valori message that changed everything. They're calling for reinforcements, he said. More Valori ships are coming from nearby star systems. We have maybe 3 weeks before they arrive. The news hit everyone hard. They had made progress, but could they fight even more Valori ships? We need to strike now, Lisa insisted, before their reinforcements arrive. Ford arrived with good news of his own. My improved mist works. We tested it on 3 people with implants. All were freed with no side effects. They formed a plan. First, use the mist to free key military and government leaders. Next, attack Valori water extraction facilities worldwide as a distraction. Finally, send a small team to infiltrate the mothership and plant Alan's pulse device at the reactor. For days, resistance members spread Ford's mist in government buildings. Slowly, leaders began to wake up from Valori control. Military bases returned to human command. Countries began to work together against the common enemy. The Valori noticed something was wrong. Their controlled humans stopped responding. Their bases reported attacks. They called their ships back to defensive positions. They're scared, Olivia said as she monitored their communications. They've never had a species fight back this effectively. Helen finished building the pulse device that would target the reactor. It was small enough to carry but powerful enough to trigger the cascade failure. The hard part would be getting it to the mothership. We'll use a captured Valori shuttle, Lisa explained. A small team. Get in, plant the device. Get out before it activates. Who goes? Jack asked. Me, Alan said. I built it. I know exactly where it needs to be placed. I'll lead the team, Lisa added. Olivia, we need you too. You understand their systems better than anyone. As they prepared for the mission, resistance forces worldwide launched attacks on Valori facilities. The water extraction centers were the main targets. Human armies, now free from control, joined the fight. For the first time, The Velori were losing ground. The final battle was about to begin. Success would mean freedom. Failure would mean the end of human independence forever. The captured Velori shuttle rose through the clouds. Inside, Alan checked the pulse device one more time. Everything had to be perfect. No room for mistakes. 5 minutes to mothership, Lisa said from the pilot's seat. She had spent days practicing with the alien controls. The shuttle responded to her touch, but it still felt strange. Besides Alan and Lisa, 4 others were on the mission. Olivia sat beside Lisa, helping with navigation. 3 fighters from Lisa's old unit provided security. All of them knew they might not return. Remember, Alan told everyone, we need 15 minutes after planting the device to get clear of the blast range. On Earth below, the battle was in full swing. Human armies attacked Velori bases. The hybrid fighters engaged Velori ships in the sky. Jack and Dr. Ford coordinated everything from the underground base. Jack's voice came through their radio. Multiple Velori ships moving to defend the mothership, but our distractions are working. Most of their forces are tied up elsewhere. The shuttle approached the massive mothership. It was huge, easily 5 miles across. Its surface glowed with strange blue lights. Normally, such a sight would fill Alan with scientific wonder. Now he only felt grim determination. Sending identification codes, Olivia said. She had copied them from the captured commander's equipment. They're accepting. We're clear to dock in Bay 7. The shuttle glided into an enormous hangar. Other Velori ships were parked there. Crews of aliens moved around, not paying much attention to the new arrival. Everything seemed normal. Suits on, Lisa ordered as the shuttle landed. They put on stolen Velori environment suits. The helmets would hide their human faces and protect them from any sudden atmosphere changes. They left the shuttle, moving with purpose. Olivia led the way, following the path to the central core she had memorized from the commander's memories. So far, no one challenged them. Something's wrong, Lisa whispered. This is too easy. She was right. As they turned a corner, 5 Velori guards blocked their path. The aliens' eyes glowed bright red. Intruders detected, one said in the Velori language. Surrender now. Lisa didn't hesitate. She fired her weapon, and the others followed. The battle was quick but loud. All 5 guards went down, but the noise would bring others. Run, Lisa shouted. They sprinted through the corridors, no longer trying to blend in. Alarms began to sound throughout the ship. More Velori appeared. Shots were exchanged. One of their team fell, then another. Alan felt a burning pain as a Velori weapon grazed his arm, but he kept moving. There, Olivia pointed. A massive door stood before them. That's the reactor chamber. Lisa shot the control panel. The door slid open. Inside was a sight that took Alan's breath away. The reactor was a giant sphere of swirling blue and white energy, suspended in the center of a vast room. Walkways surrounded it at different levels. Cover the door, Lisa told the remaining fighter. Olivia, find us the exit route. Alan, do your thing. Alan rushed to the control panel. His hands moved quickly, using the knowledge they had gained. The panel opened, revealing the reactor's control system. He began to install the pulse device. Hurry, Olivia called. More guards coming. The sounds of fighting came from the doorway. The last fighter was holding them off, but he wouldn't last long. Alan's hands were steady despite the chaos. Just as he finished connecting the device, a new sound filled the chamber. Slow, deliberate footsteps. Alan turned to see Supreme Commander Zix enter, flanked by elite guards. Dr. Carter, Zix said, the primitive ape who thinks he can challenge us. Lisa moved to shoot, but the guards were faster. Energy blasts hit her and Olivia, sending them to the ground. They were alive but badly hurt. Alan stood alone before the reactor, the commander approaching. The pulse device was installed but not activated. He had to press the final sequence to start the countdown. Your species will be remembered, Zix said coldly. a minor footnote in our history of conquest. Alan's hand moved toward the activation button. Six saw this and raised his weapon. Even if you activate it, you won't leave this room alive, the commander warned. Alan smiled sadly. Some prices are worth paying. He slammed his hand down on the button. Lights on the device began to blink. The countdown had started. Zix fired, but Alan had already jumped aside. The battle for Earth's future would end here, one way or another. The world watched in awe as the Valori mothership collapsed in on itself. It didn't explode outward like many expected. Instead, it seemed to fold inward, as if being crushed by an invisible hand. A bright flash of light, then nothing. Where the massive ship once hung in orbit, now there was only empty space. Lisa Morgan opened her eyes in the medical bay of the Resistance base. Her body ached all over. She tried to sit up but couldn't. "Easy," Jack Wright said, gently pushing her back down. "You're pretty beat up." "Olivia?" Lisa asked, her voice hoarse. "Right here," Olivia said from the next bed. Her arm was in a cast, and bandages covered part of her face. "We made it out." "How?" Lisa asked. The last thing she remembered was being shot by Valori guards in the reactor room. "You can thank the hybrid fighters," Jack explained. "When they saw your shuttle was in trouble, they blasted their way into the hangar. Found you both unconscious near the shuttle. Barely got out before the mothership collapsed." Lisa closed her eyes, remembering. "And Alan?" Jack and Olivia exchanged sad looks. "He didn't make it," Jack said quietly. "He stayed behind to make sure the device worked. He knew someone had to keep Zix busy." A month passed. The world was slowly recovering. Without the mothership's control, the remaining Valori forces on Earth were quickly defeated. Some Valori surrendered, offering knowledge in exchange for their lives. Dr. Ford worked with these cooperative aliens. He learned that many of them were from lower castes, forced to serve their leaders. They had never supported the conquest of other worlds. They were victims too, in a way, he explained at a council meeting. Their society is strictly divided. The lower castes were told they would die if their leaders didn't find new resources. Jack led a team that adapted Valori communication technology. They created a system that could detect approaching ships from far away. Earth would never be surprised again. Olivia, now recovered, worked with Ford and the cooperative Valori. Together, they developed new medical treatments using alien biology. Diseases that once killed millions could now be cured. 1 year after the defeat of the Valori, people gathered in Washington, D.C. for a special ceremony. A monument was unveiled, honoring those who died in the war. At its center stood a statue of Dr. Alan Carter. The inscription read, "He reminded us that being human means never stopping our evolution." After the ceremony, Lisa, now General Morgan, met with world leaders. They had made an important decision. Using recovered Valori technology combined with human innovation, they had built Earth's first true interstellar ship. "What will you call it?" asked the new Secretary of the United Nations. "The ESS Carter," Lisa replied. "Earth Spaceship Carter." The ship was unlike anything built before. It used principles from both human and Valori science, but improved in ways the Valori never imagined. Humans had taken alien technology and made it better. On launch day, the ESS Carter prepared for its first journey. Its crew included humans and a few reformed Valori who had chosen to stay on Earth. Lisa stood on the bridge as captain, with Olivia as chief science officer and Jack managing communications from Earth. Just before launch, they received a strange message from deep space. Jack's voice came through the radio, excited and nervous. "Lisa, we picked up a transmission. Another alien species. They've been watching us. They want to talk." Lisa read the translated message on her screen. "We observed your conflict with the Valori. We had judged your kind too primitive for contact. We were wrong. We wish to meet in peace." Lisa smiled as she looked at her crew, a mix of humans and Valori working together. "Send a reply," she told Jack. "Tell them we're ready to meet as equals." The ESS Carter lifted smoothly from Earth, heading to the stars. Humans had been called primitive apes. Now they were taking their place among the stars, not as conquerors like the Valori, but as explorers seeking knowledge and friendship. Dr. Carter's last notes had been found in his lab. The final line read, "The Valori thought being advanced meant having better technology. They never understood that true advancement comes from growing beyond the need to dominate others. That's the evolution they missed, and we must never forget."